Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. At this time, we will have the roll call. Director Holcomb.
Chairman Washington.
Here.
Vice Chairman Grout.
Here.
Commissioner Addison. Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Boyd.
Here.
Commissioner Ellender.
Here.
Commissioner Latino.
Here.
Commissioner Scroggs.
Here.
And Commissioner Sterling.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Director Holcomb. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 18th meeting? So moved by Commissioner Latino. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Scroggs. Any objections? Seeing none, the minutes have now been approved. We'll now move on to the comprehensive plan update by Mr. Leuenberger. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I am Jeffrey Leuenberger with the Long Range Planning Division, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on the comprehensive plan and the process that we're going with our 5-year update that is currently taking place. At this point, at your guys' next meeting, at the November meeting, we will be presenting the Planning Commission with the final draft version of the future BR 5-year update, and at that November meeting, you'll be making a recommendation to the Metro Council for approval or not. So during the last year, we've done multiple press releases, we've had lots of publicity on several of the local TV stations, radio stations, distributed a lot of flyers, social media posts that assisted with our public outreach to the public workshops. And we also created an introductory video and collected 410 surveys during this process. We also had 9 workshops with a total of 127 total public workshop attendees. So during that entire process, we've come up with this draft for future BR. The final draft is located on our website. You can find that at brla.gov/futurebr-5-year-update. If you go there, the draft copies of the elements will be there, the future land use maps, the major street plan, and along with all the comments we received and responses to those comments. So you can go to the website right now and look at those comments, and at our November meeting, we will be having a public hearing for those. So if you have any questions, I will take those at this time.
I don't believe we do. Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll ask Vice Chairman Grout to read in the rules for conducting public hearings.
Rules for conducting public hearings. This is a public meeting. Any interested member of the public who wishes to comment on an item from this agenda may comment in person at City Hall, 222 St. Louis Street, 3rd floor, room 348, during the meeting. Members of the public desiring to speak on a particular item should refer to a meeting agenda and complete necessary information prior to the meeting by filling out a request to speak card indicating that you wish to speak and place it in the designated location prior to the meeting. Applicant and applicant's representatives for the proposal will speak first for a total of, or combined period of not to exceed 15 minutes. Proponents will speak, then the opponents. Each speaker will not be allowed more than 3 minutes. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks by avoiding duplication of their presentations. Applicant will be allowed a total of 5 minutes for rebuttal. Opponents will not be allowed to rebut. Items placed on the consent agenda by the Planning Commission staff will not have time allocated for speaking unless there is a member of the public at the meeting who wishes to speak on an item. In such cases, the proposal will follow the standard procedures. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chairman Grout. We can now move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Moran.
Consent agenda. The following items are on the consent agenda for withdrawal. Item number 17, SS 7-23, Suburb North Baton Rouge. Proposed residential subdivision with a private street located on the north side of Central Road, east of Scenic Highway. The following items are on the consent agenda for deferral. Item number 12, ISPUD 1-23, Goodwood Villa, to rezone property from single-family residential A1 to infill small planned unit development, ISPUD, for 3 single-family residential lots located on the south side of Goodwood Boulevard, west of Colonial Drive. And item 13, PUD 4-08, the Heights at Matera, Women's Hospital Final Development Plan. The following items are on the consent agenda for approval. Item number 5, case 5823, T1501, T1503, and T1541 Terrace Street, to rezone property from heavy commercial C2 and limited residential A3.1 to general residential A4, located on the north side of Terrace Street, east of South 15th Street. Item number 6, case 5923, 4975 Choctaw Drive, to rezone property from light industrial M1 to heavy commercial 1, HC1, located on the north side of Choctaw Drive, west of North Foster Drive. Item number 7, case 60-23, 7474 Corporate Boulevard, Suites 106 and 107, to rezone property from light commercial C1 to commercial alcoholic beverage restaurant CAB1, located on the south side of Corporate Boulevard, west of Jefferson Highway. Item number 8, case 6123, T5660 Winchester Avenue, to rezone property from general residential A4 to single-family residential A2.7, located on the east side of Winchester Avenue, south of Greenwell Street. Item number 9, case 62-23, 8408, 8416, 8418, and 8428 Scotland Avenue, 1363 and 1379 Swan Avenue, 1344 and 1350 Sora Street, to rezone property from C2 heavy commercial, limited residential A3.1, and commercial alcoholic beverage restaurant CAB1 to general residential A4 and commercial alcoholic beverage restaurant CAB1, located on the east side of Scotland Avenue between Swan Avenue and Sora Street. Item number 14, CS 15-23, Lawrence and Mary Square Estate Property, proposed flag lot minor subdivision on property located on the west side of Hunt Road, south of Jackson Road. Item number 15, S4-23, North Park Subdivision, proposed commercial subdivision with public streets located on the east side of Airline Highway, north of Greenwell Street. Item number 16, SP 9-23, North Park Phase 1, proposed mixed-use development consisting of multifamily residential and commercial uses located on the east side of Airline Highway, north of Greenwell Street. Item number 18, SS 9-23, Carl Elton Cheney property, proposed residential subdivision with a private street located on the west side of Cheney Road, north of Milldale Road. And item number 19, SS 7-23, Capital City Produce Expansion, proposed warehouse addition to existing facility located on the south side of Commercial Avenue, east of O'Neill Lane. Correction, that was SP-7-23. Planning Commission staff certifies that all of these items are consistent with the comprehensive plan and the UDC.
We've had a request by the applicant to pull item 15, S423, North Park Subdivision, and companion case item 16, SP 923, North Park Phase 1 Site Plan from the consent agenda.
Thank you. Commission members, you've heard all the items that have been placed on the consent agenda that are to be taken with one vote. Are there any members of this commission who have an item on consent that they would like to be pulled and heard as part of the regular agenda? Do we have any members of the public present who would like to speak on any items that are on the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion by Commissioner Addison, second by Vice Chairman Grout. Are there any objections to accepting the items that have been placed on the consent agenda? Seeing none, these items have now been approved, and we can move on to the regular agenda.
Mr. Chairman, the next two items can be taken together. That's item 2 and item 3.
PA 1423, 3470 Wayne Drive, related to case 5723. Property is located on the east side of Wayne Drive, north of Winburn Avenue, Council District 7, Cole. The applicant is Cheryl L. Cropper. The current future BR land use designation is residential neighborhood. The requested future BR land use designation is compact neighborhood. The existing zoning is single-family residential A2 with a requested zoning of limited residential A3.1. PA 1423, 3470 Wayne Drive, related to case 5723.
Staff recommends denial of the plan amendment based upon the land use designation of residential neighborhood appearing appropriate. Staff certifies that the proposed rezoning request does meet the criteria for a change of zoning if the companion comprehensive plan amendment is approved, being compatible with surrounding uses and conforming to Unified Development Code requirements.
Are there any additional speaker cards on this item, Director Holcomb?
We have no additional speaker cards other than the applicant.
Okay. At this time, I'll open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come to the podium to speak on the item. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Cropper, and the picture they showed is invalid. It's a vacant lot. I had to demolish the old house because it was deteriorating. I can't get the proper use of my land if it's not approved. And what I placed into my application, detailed information, is appropriate for me getting that done. We have a church right down the street that's been operating since I've been there in 1988. 2 streets over, you have 3779 Eaton Street, which is 32 duplex apartments in that division. And then you have a house down from my residence at 3470. One house down, you have a duplex. So it would be unfair and discriminatory if mine is not approved and they're allowed to operate under the same terms. And what I proposed is not going to take out of the ordinary, environment of the neighborhood. As I said in my letter, it will be as a single-family structure. It won't be as a compact apartment structure. So the houses that are adjacent to me on either side, front and back, won't be affected by the appearance. In other words, it won't set them off as looking awkward. It may imbue them to do upgrades on their property and flourish the neighborhood. On Wayne Drive Street, we have a total of 10 vacant lots. And it just needs productivity there. And I stay in Seattle. I am a native from Louisiana, born and reared. I've been there 5 years, and I'm trying to transfer back with my job here. But I need to use my land for productivity. I can't do it no other way without your approval. So it's not going to take away from no one else's property. It's not going to make them look awkward. It may make them look, you just have a freshly new construction project that's being done. But it's not going to look like no extravagant apartment duplex building if that's what this is in reference to. It's going to look like a family structured home there. So I can't find the beneficial use of my property without it being approved. So.
Okay, thank you. Since we have no other speaker cards, I will close the, did you have a speaker card, sir? Did you fill out a speaker card? Okay, so we'll invite you to the podium to speak, and you'll just need to fill out a speaker card afterwards. You can come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Ernest Emery, 3528 Wayne. I'm right next door to the property. If she's just talking about building a duplex, there are other duplexes on the street. It ain't no harm in what she's doing. I'm right next door to the property. You know, that's all I got to say.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. If there are no other speaker cards, then we will close the public hearing, and I'll invite questions or comments or motions from the commissioners. Vice Chairman Grout.
Mr. Director, the comment was made that this is a duplex. Is that allowed under 3.1?
Yes, A 3.1, the zoning category she's requesting would allow a duplex and also multifamily.
But A2 does not.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Addison. There's a motion on the floor from Commissioner Addison to approve this item. These two items, excuse me. I believe that was seconded by Commissioner Banks. Are there any objections? Any further discussion? Seeing none, those items are approved. I'm sorry. Okay. Those items have been approved. We'll move on at this time to item number 4, case 5623-662 South Foster Drive.
Related to case 5623, 662 South Foster Drive. Property is located on the west side of South Foster Drive, north of Capitol Heights Avenue, Council District 7, Cole. The applicant is David Timmel. Future BR land use designation is mixed use. The existing zoning is light commercial LC1 with a requested zoning of commercial alcoholic beverage restaurant CAB1. Case 5623, 662 South Foster Drive.
Staff certifies that the proposed request meets the criteria for a change of zoning, being consistent with the comprehensive plan, compatible with surrounding uses, and conforming to Unified Development Code requirements.
The Planning Commission office has received 5 messages in opposition to this item.
Thank you, Director Holcomb. At this time, I'll open the public hearing and invite the applicant to speak for a period not to exceed 15 minutes. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Chair Rossi. Good afternoon, good evening. I won't take 15 minutes. I won't be that long.
Appreciate that.
My name is David Timmel. I'm a resident of Mid-City, 6632 Seven Oaks. My current residence is about 5 minutes from this current property that I recently purchased. Just a couple quick notes. As I understand, there is some opposition, which I'm not privy to or don't understand it, but I'll just kind of state a little bit about myself and then look forward to hearing the conversation around what I plan to do. So I've been in Baton Rouge about 27 years. Been married 27 years, been in Baton Rouge 30. So this is home. I'm originally from New York City. That's where I was born. I am the son of immigrants to this country from the island of Jamaica. This property I purchased a couple months ago, and my plan for it is to make a Caribbean eating spot in Mid-City. Over the past 4 to 5 years, my wife and I, along with our 2 daughters, have relocated to Mid-City from Sherwood. We love the Mid-City culture. We love Mid-City, what it represents, and we love Baton Rouge. We plan on making this a spot to where individuals can come and eat, enjoy Caribbean cuisine, and go about their way. This spot will be similar to that of Barracuda, Taco, Curbside, and other restaurants in the area, which we all frequent. In my opinion, what I plan to do goes hand in hand with the American dream of entrepreneurism, a young man buying a piece of property and turning it into something that we can all enjoy. Also in Mid-City, I had an opportunity to go to the Mid-City Merchants Meeting, which I'm a member of, also the YMCA. I talked to those business owners in the community. In fact, we have some business owners that are my neighbors that are here tonight. Matt with the YMCA, which I frequent and a member of, thought it was a great idea. I didn't see any issues with it. Perry Franklin, who runs the Executive Center on Foster, is also a proponent of this and doesn't see any issue there. In fact, the YMCA is getting ready to knock down that whole AC Lewis corridor and potentially put up apartments and create more vibe, more of a vibrant community in Mid-City. So I believe that this fits what we're doing in Mid-City. Again, a resident, enjoy being in Mid-City and love it, and look forward to any questions or conversations surrounding what we plan on doing in this location.
Thank you, sir. We have one other card that is in favor but does not wish to speak for Darlene Kipps. Moving on to the opposition, our first card is for Debbie Wagisbeck. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Wagisback, and I've owned my home on 640 Bienville Street for 11 years. I'm here to say that I oppose the rezoning 662 South Foster from C1 to CAB1 for several reasons. Currently, there's a pet shop, a dentist office, and a property management office building that backs up to our homes. They're zoned C1. They're indoor businesses. They have standard business hours. It's quiet, and it creates a buffer from the very chaotic South Foster Drive to Bienville Street. I think that if we rezone the 662 South Foster, it will definitely have a negative impact on the residents living on Bienville Street and, in general, Capitol Heights neighbors. A restaurant with evening hours, serving alcohol, outdoor dining and grilling, outdoor lighting, outdoor music will certainly have an adverse effect on the peacefulness of our neighborhood. It will feel less like a residential area and more like a commercial hub. In 225 and in the Baton Rouge Business Report, Mr. Timmel said he wanted his restaurant to be that similar of Curbside Burgers and Barracuda Tacos. And both of these restaurants are on Government Street. This type of a restaurant should not be able to back up to the backyard of homeowners when it's going to be an outdoor, mainly restaurant. I argue that it will certainly not add value to my home, and one could argue that it would decrease the value of our homes. When we bought our homes, we knew that we were backing up to C1, professional businesses. Nobody was trying to rezone it for alcohol purposes. This is also going to create an increase of traffic on South Foster, causing even more drivers to cut through our neighborhood to avoid the jam on Foster and Government. With all the speeding and cutting through, it puts families, the walkers, the bikers, and all the children that walk down Capitol Heights in danger.
You have about 30 seconds.
Well, we already have a lot of noise, loitering, and issues with customers fighting in parking lots of Jack in the Box, Deja Vu Vape Shop, and Bill Brady's, and we don't need any more commercial businesses zoned CAB1 on our block. And thank you for your time, and I respectfully ask that you deny this rezoning request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next card is for Leslie Bratton.
Bratton, 5647 Capitol Heights. For the last maybe 5 years, I've watched Government Street grow. They've had a vision. They've expanded it and made it into a corridor. There's a lot of good restaurants there. There's a lot of new businesses and old businesses. However, right now, there are a number of empty buildings that could be revitalized and kept that corridor even more vibrant. South Foster, being a 4 and a 5 lane road, is already congested. Anytime you have something that you're pulling off for, depending on where you're going, you just add more to the traffic and everything else. Plus, just like Debbie said, they go through the neighborhood, and even though there's walking paths and bike paths, there's an awful lot of people that use that for just outside whatever. He mentioned these other restaurants. Fleur de Lis is now vacant. Great big parking and everything else. I go back to South Foster for a moment, and the dental office really and truly doesn't seem to have much land around it. I don't know where the Planning Commission figures out where all this land is, because there is a servitude back there that is for drainage, is for the utility people, and people are allowed to use that servitude, but they have to keep it open. But I mean, does the owner of the new business think that that servitude is just carte blanche land that can just be used for whatever? The other thing is, where do the cars park? There is parking in these other two businesses, but they have already said that they don't want any overflow parking. How many complaints are going to happen where loud music coming from cars that are parked close to the residential people before all of a sudden people say that we made a mistake in rezoning this? So I leave it at that. I mean, you guys have to realize that people live in neighborhoods, people have businesses, and these businesses should have some sort of synergy. And if if this corridor was presented for that one main reason, to have it a vibrant place, and he's already mentioned these other places, why wouldn't he want to get on that thoroughfare and know that he's got carte blanche people to come to his thing and everything else, rather than traffic and people pulling in and having to go out into the traffic? It's a 5-lane road. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next card is for Catherine Fry.
Guys.
Good evening.
So I am Miss Fry. I graduated from McKinley High and have been a resident of Baton Rouge for my entire life. I, too, am a business owner, just like the man who is, trying to start his business here. But sadly, I do have to oppose this. I bought my house on Bienville Street 2 years ago when I was 24 years old. I have worked very hard to purchase my first home, and the crime that has already occurred in the 2 years that I've lived there has been terrifying and discouraging. Even less than a month ago, we had someone open firing a weapon on our street. I have had my car broken into in my driveway 2 times. I have seen a man arrested on his stomach in my front yard out of my front window. 2 years of living here. And as a young female, it has been terrifying. And so my concern is that adding alcohol, and my lot is directly behind this business, by the way, directly behind. So my privacy is a big concern as well. But adding alcohol into an area where we already have a pretty big crime issue, I'm really concerned about the effects that could have. When I bought my home, the lot was light commercial, and I was very comfortable with that. In my backyard, I have a garden where I grow my own vegetables and my own food. I also have a backyard flock of chickens that provide a source of protein for me, so I'm very concerned about the pollution as well that would come from a business like this being directly behind my back fence. My bedroom is less than 100 feet from this business. So trying to go to bed at night, I'm very concerned about the effects that would have for me being in a residential area, having music at night. Really, really worried about that. I also have dogs. I can go on and on. I'm also wondering, like some of them have mentioned, about what the intended parking space would be. I have seen more people than I can count drive down the one way of Capitol Heights in the wrong direction. So I'm just wondering about where this parking would be, as well as would there be any attempt at privacy between these homes that are directly behind his restaurant, because from my kitchen window and my bathroom window, I can see his entire lot and they can see me. from my back porch as well, I would have to fund a 10-foot privacy fence in order to have any sort of privacy. I have a pool in my backyard. I am a young female. Obviously, there's, I have to have some sort of privacy.
You have about 10 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. And then I think also what they said, just the other businesses on his side of Foster are not restaurants, and they definitely don't serve alcohol. So it just seems a little out of place for me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Our next card is for Philip Marks. Good evening.
Hello, Councilman. My name is Philip Marks. I have lived at 642 Bienville Street for about 2 years now, and I'm also here to say that I oppose this rezoning. So I apologize. There might be a little bit of repetition with what people have said before, but I'll be brief. So I like the idea of this kind of concept in the neighborhood, but I just think that our little street of Bienville ultimately will be the losers in this rezoning. And the reason I think that is also related to the recent business openings that we've had on the street, which again have exacerbated the use of Bienville as an unintended throughway on which people are frequently speeding. So I think that's true, and I think we bear that burden in a way that perhaps upstream residents or upstream establishments like the YMCA do not. So I think in addition to the parking concerns that have been raised before, my understanding is that Foster is a 4-lane road, and so it's going to be hard for northbound traffic to take a left into said parking for this new establishment. And so what I foresee happening, what's been happening with these other businesses, is that people will take a left on Capitol Heights and then take a right onto Bienville Street. And again, I think that's something that we on our street will bear the burdens of. So thank you for your time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Our next card is for Janine Smith.
Hi, I'm Janine Smith. I live at 555 Bienville Street. I've lived there since January 2018. And sadly, I'm opposed to this development, not because I'm anti-business, and not that I don't think Mr. Timmel is delightful and seems like a wonderful person, but because we are all opposed to the idea of a business being open in the evening hours and serving alcohol and having outdoor entertainment and people dining and loitering outside. We have a problem on the Government Street side of Bienville with people loitering, hanging out in the parking lots. If you look at open neighborhood on brla.gov, you will see that the hotbed of criminal activity for 7 or 8 blocks either way on Government Street is all located right around Phil Brady's, the Jack in the Box and the vape shop. And there's no other criminal activity that comes near what's going on there. So we have concerns, and it's specifically because these businesses are open after hours. In Phil Brady's case, they're also serving alcohol, and people are going outside to smoke. So we have a lot of concerns about noise level, about foot traffic, about people hanging out and loitering and drinking, and criminal activity. So that was really, I didn't want to repeat everything that everyone else said, although I do agree with them. But I did want to point out that there's been an uptick in criminal activity since the vape shop located. And there are after hours. So now it's kind of become 3 after hours businesses that are attracting people late in the evenings just to hang out. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next card is for Bodo Klaus.
I'm Bodo Klaus. I'm an architect. I'm a real estate broker, and I'm a general contractor. Haven't done a lot of real estate development in Baton Rouge through the years, beginning in Capitol Heights in 1970. We done a lot of work. We bought up a lot of old houses and fixed them up. We own apartment buildings and office buildings. And it's all first class and an improvement to the neighborhood. I just found out about this meeting this morning, and I didn't know about the 3-minute limitation. So I was prepared to make my case, but I can't do it in 3 minutes. It's just too much going on. So I'm going to try it to condense it for you, and I'm going to ask you from the very beginning to think about the concept of a quote-unquote restaurant on a lot that's 40 feet wide and 120 foot deep. I mean, are you kidding me? There's no way to work out any reasonable parking, especially since the existing building, the stairway to it is 10 foot from South Foster Drive. So the only parking they can have in the rear, and one of their requirements besides parking is going to be access for delivery trucks. It's not going to happen. It's just not enough room. So I'm opposing this application on the grounds that, number one, for what I have seen and heard here today, I think the application is erroneous in many respects, and I'm certainly planning on pursuing that if you were to approve it. And so that'd be my first complaint and objection.
You have about 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah. Well, in 30 seconds, I want to tell you, we just spent a lot of money improving Government Street on Capitol Heights for pedestrian use, for the young people to walk their dogs and their children and all that, and what? You're going to put this on a 40 or 120-foot lot in what people have tried to improve for 30 years and spent thousands upon thousands of dollars of their own money to improve.
Okay,
And
thank you,
this
sir.
thing is not going to fit.
Thank you. Our next court is for Charles Schauf.
Yes, my name is Charles Schauf, 661 Bienville Street. I've owned my home here for 9 years. I really like the quiet Capitol Heights neighborhood. It's quiet that is protected by the current light commercial C1 buffer on South Foster. Rezoning 662 South Foster to CAB1 would blow a gap-toothed zoning hole in its buffer. Rather than being a buffer to noise and residents, it would create a source of noise. Going from a quiet dentist office to a noisy outdoor restaurant serving alcohol will be a huge change for neighborhood dynamics. This property borders my backyard directly and all the other residents on the east side of Bienville Street, separated only by a low fence. I'm very concerned about the constant and late noise and light pollution, cooking and grilling smells, and alcohol being served in an open air setting in our backyards. The application staff report notes that this lot, at 4,800 square feet, does not meet the minimum size requirement of 7,500 square feet for a lot within CAB1 zone, as required by the Unified Development Code, Louisiana Revised Statutes 33101 and following, and particularly 33112. This rezoning is a clear violation of that requirement. Planning Department staff report also says this rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan. But the comprehensive plan's first recommendation for Mid-City is to focus redevelopment efforts on Government Street and Florida Boulevard. In a recent business report story, the applicant cited examples of the type of restaurant he's planning, and again, as others have said, all of them are on Government Street. New restaurants fail at an alarming 70+% rate. Rezoning will permanently change the prospect, introduce the prospect of turnover and instability to the neighborhood. I'm all in favor of city planning and the vision and stability it provides. I made the biggest investment of my life, my home, based on the current C1 zoning. I would never have bought a house next door to an open-air restaurant serving alcohol. The comprehensive plan recommends planning and zoning focus redevelopment efforts on Government Street and Florida Boulevard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next card is for Coleman Brown.
I'm Coleman Brown. I'm a resident of 836 Baton Street, about 3 blocks away from the site. I've lived there all my life, 76 years. I've served as the first president of the Capitol Heights Neighborhood Association. We formed it 30 years ago, which encompasses this area. Florida Boulevard Development District, I was the first president of that as well. And the Capitol Mid-City Merchants, we had a committee for this redo of Government Street, and I served as the chairman of that particular committee. And I want to thank you for serving on this commission. This is probably one of the biggest mistakes I've seen in the development of this particular area for this conflict to occur. My wife and I pick up litter daily in front of this particular site and along Government Street down to Calandro's and beyond. And the crawfish operation restaurant directly across the street, we pick up tons of litter from that organization there as well. Bodo Klaus didn't mention it, but his office building, which won numerous architectural awards, I believe Bodo, it's a beautiful building, is right next door to this particular site. Government Street's come a long way, so has Capitol Heights. We have asked the city of Baton Rouge, in my capacity on those other organizations that I've chaired, for a light at Capitol Heights, which is about maybe 100 feet away from this particular site. We've had lots of pedestrian accidents there at Capitol Heights. I guess y'all are aware of that. Capitol Heights and South Foster. Lots of loud cars and mufflers, speeders go down that street all the time. So we really have a conflict here with this land use before you, and respectfully oppose their relocation. There's plenty of opportunity on Government Street or Florida for them to come and start a nice new restaurant, which we all agree would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 additional speaker cards that are in opposition but do not wish to speak. Those are for Heidi Klaus and Beverly May. At this time, I'll invite the applicant back for a 5-minute rebuttal.
Thank you, Commission members. Just a couple points of clarification. South Foster is a 4-lane highway. One thing that I did fail to mention, which I think is very important, is on the corner of Clay Cut and South Foster. I recently purchased a condominium there, which I have my mother aging in place. So I'm extremely familiar with the corridor and what that represents. When we talk about they and crime and what have you, I'm not sure to what extent that folks are alleging. I will say this, though, that as a residential contractor and one that does affordable housing, the current zoning of C1 does allow for low-income housing, which I've also considered in that area. So when I hear concerns about crime and what have you, I would just caution residents that it is owned and it's going to be redeveloped. The current site, again, is not one that is geared towards a younger crowd, a robust crowd. At being 52 years old, my wife being 51, oftentimes we look for places that we can go eat, drink, and then go ahead and go home. And if you look at those establishments that we mentioned on Government Street, it is just that. They're not rowdy. They're not rambunctious. Folks can go there, eat, and leave. And lastly, I'll say that in that area, when we talk about Bienville, which I do respect the neighbors being on that street, the way that the lot was designed, and correcting Mr. Klaus, it's not a 40 by 120, it's 3 lots that it sits on. So it's actually 120 by 120. I am aware that Mr. Klaus has had some difficulty with the current doctor, the dentist that owns the place that I bought, which I have nothing to do with that. And so, be that as it may, it is what it is. But once again, it's a great atmosphere, a great location. I've communicated with mid-city merchants and feel that what we're planning on doing there would just add tremendous value to the neighborhood and what mid-city is being redeveloped to be in this current state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commission members, at this time, I will close the public hearing and invite questions and comments. I believe we have one from Vice Chairman Grout.
Mr. Director, my understanding is that this property is currently C1, which would allow a restaurant by right. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So the concern here that we're discussing is whether that restaurant has alcohol or doesn't have alcohol, but not whether it can be a restaurant. Is that correct?
That's correct,
Okay.
Commissioner Brown.
And the other thing was, speaking of the alcohol, someone brought up the 7,500 square foot minimum lot size. That does create an issue. Now, if all 3 of those lots taken together, would that not constitute the 7,500 square feet?
So these are existing lots of record. They're classified as legal nonconforming lots. The change or the potential change in zoning to be considered tonight does not increase the extent of the nonconformity of these lots.
And Phil Brady's was brought up. That's a CAB2, is that correct? Not a CAB1.
Correct. They operate as a bar and lounge.
Okay. Can the applicant come forward, please, for a moment? Have you spoken with your neighbors about this?
Not on Bienville, but I did go to Mid-City Merchants.
Right.
And I talked to other business owners. I didn't make my way around to the residents of that community, Mr. Grout. And so I did, when I attended Mid-City Merchants, one of the local businesses did tell me that there was some concern from the neighbors, and that was this past Thursday. And so between Thursday and today, I did not have a chance to go to speak to those residents, but I have been in constant contact with other business owners and have communicated with the Mid-City Merchants Group.
Well, the reason I ask is that some of the neighbors had brought up proximity to this site.
Yes, sir.
And if you actually, there's, and I don't know if it's Ms. Fry, is that, yes. There's a house that literally, and it may be yours, that is almost on the property line in the back.
Mm-hmm.
That's yours, okay. That piece of property, I mean, that's of concern that, and I know we're dealing with planning and not specifics or where traffic's going to be, et cetera, but you have some neighbors who are quite close to you, and I think it would behoove you to talk with them, see what their concerns are, and how you can help address them. A restaurant can go there no matter what. We're not arguing that point. I know a lot of people said they don't want a restaurant here, and they want us to try to move it to Government Street, which we're not going to do.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you how to deal with your property.
Mr. Grout, I do respect that. Yeah. And I do believe that in respect of what I've heard tonight, which was the first time, I do see a need to mitigate and have some type of 10 to 12 foot wall up on the servitude that's in the back. So I do agree that because residents do butt up against it, there is a need. But this was the first time in honesty and transparency that I've heard these concerns tonight.
Well, I think those concerns are in many ways legitimate, and I think they're concerns that I think you can answer.
Yes,
and again,
sir.
It's not for us to decide how you do that. We're dealing in a planning exercise as to whether you can have alcohol at your restaurant or not.
Right.
So with that, I mean, I'm not going to get into negotiation here, but I would highly recommend you speak with your new neighbors and listen to what they have to say, and maybe come to some agreement. But let's see. I'm going through my list here. I think that's really all I've got. So I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Mr. Grout.
Additional questions, comments from the commission? Commissioner Banks?
Councilman Cole's district, have you spoken with him?
I have, Councilwoman Banks. Thank you for that question. That was one of my first calls. And once again, as a housing developer, one of the things that I thought about doing was.
I kind of need you to stick to.
Oh, yeah. So I did talk to him about it.
And what did he say?
He was fine with it.
Okay.
I've been to council meetings and talked to him at one of the previous council meetings, and he was okay with that.
Okay. I don't need to ask, the second question was, if you knew in advance of the opposition, usually my second question is, did the councilman arrange a community meeting? But I guess that would not be appropriate because you say you did not know there was opposition.
But I did go to a Mid-City Merchants meeting last week, which I hope to meet some of the neighbors and business owners, which I did. And I've also gone to the Florida Boulevard corridor, which
So let me ask you this. Did you talk to the people to the left, right, north, south?
The people to the right, yes.
North, south, yeah.
Yes, the people to the right, yes. Across the street, yes. The person to the left, one of the owners, no, there's a little conflict already existing, so I have to figure out how to mitigate that.
Okay, so that was a speaker who said it butts against her house. That's not one of the neighbors, though?
Yes, on the backside.
So what was that conversation like?
I didn't have that conversation on the backside. To the right, yes, across the street, and not on the backside, which is the adjacent street, Bienville, that they're referencing.
Any reason you didn't get a chance to speak to that neighbor?
No, I didn't know of the opposition. I just found out about it Thursday.
No, I mean, just as due process, to say this is what I'm interested in.
No,
Okay.
I didn't. I just didn't have an opportunity.
Yeah. So in just hearing your project, it sounds great. I agree. We shouldn't tell you what to do with it. I would have some concerns just on some of the issues that we've had with other acquired CAB1, and it's in close proximity to housing, where you could put a fence, but that won't stop the noise if there's music, if there's chatter. It would either the person, you're either stifling the enjoyment of those who are at your restaurant or the quality of life of the resident behind you. So that's what, for me, just initially does not make this the right project, because that's very important. And so unless you and that neighbor can work out for something, I cannot even, just based on what I've heard today, be in support. The other thing is, you mentioned that it was already zoned as C1. And you indicated you could do affordable housing there?
Absolutely.
So tell me what that inference was about.
Well, I keep hearing inferences about community traffic, turning off a Foster. So anything that's going to go there, my point simply being is that there's going to be some type of traffic and some type of folks turning in and out of a Foster, which is a four-lane road. So whatever's going to be done there, which I don't need that to do, there's going to be traffic either way. But this is something that I feel strongly about.
You also indicated about, they're mentioning crime. So tell me your inference as it relates to affordable housing and crime.
So I've heard the connotation numerous times, not only tonight, but also in other meetings that I've been to. I have something on the consent agenda which was passed, and I've heard individuals in the Baton Rouge community, when it comes to housing, mention crime, and sometimes they associate that with that as well.
I didn't hear that today.
Okay, you didn't hear crime today?
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear anyone make any reference between affordable housing and crime other than you.
Yeah, that was my opinion.
Okay, so those are people that I, right off the bat, will never approve, because I think that that's prejudice.
Right.
I think it's there's no information that would indicate. I think you're prejudicing a group of people based on their income level, and oftentimes that's also associated with race.
Right.
And so for you to say that alone, I don't like. I would not approve it. So I don't know where we go with this. I'd like to make a motion that we delete the item. I think you need to start from scratch. I think you need to meet with your councilman and you need to have a community meeting with him. And I think you need to reassess your values and how you view people that affordable living. To me, affordable housing is if you can afford it. And that is whether you make $1,000 a month or $100,000 a month. And so for me, I like to make a motion that we delete this item. You really need to go back. And I don't think you'll be a good neighbor because you're ignoring their concerns, whether we agree with it or not. All of that matters to me.
To clarify, Commissioner Banks, are you making a motion to deny the
To
item?
deny, I wish we could delete, but yeah, deny, to deny the item.
Okay, I didn't mean to cut off your statement. I just wanted to make sure we were on that.
Yeah, so I'm sensitive to all of that, especially when I represent a people who have been constantly, the direction by which their community has grown or not, or stifled based on what other people pushed on us. So I'm extremely sensitive to that. So for me, I'd like to deny the item tonight, and I think you have a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
There's a motion on the floor from Commissioner Banks to deny this item. Is there a second to that motion? Seeing none, that motion fails. I believe we have a comment by Commissioner Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. I'm trying to find in the staff report, your recommendation for the staff was what, Mr.
The staff recommendation was to certify the proposed request meets the criteria for a change of zoning.
Find it when you start reading. Okay, that's one part. I did understand that the buffer that we are talking about, there's a servitude in the back, and the applicant has indicated a second ago he's willing to put a fence up that further buffers the back part of that property. How much of the right-of-way is that servitude? I don't think I see that anywhere here. I don't know if the applicant answered that or someone on staff. You don't have an idea what that buffer is?
We can give a pretty good estimate of the.
Can you please for a moment? I need that. And I'll continue my comment while you look that part up.
It's approximately 15 feet.
About a 15-feet buffer between that back street.
15-foot servitude.
The final part is that on not Bienville, let me see what street this is. Yes, Bienville. I noticed the property directly behind this applicant is listed as B1. And give me some clarity of what B1 items can go in B1.
B1 is an old inactive zoning district. It allows office uses. It's typically a transition in between residential and commercial areas.
And his property is zoned as a commercial. And the only difference, as I heard two of my colleagues mention, that the only difference is he's actually applying to allow it for alcohol beverage in the restaurant that he's going to serve. So with that modified change would only allow that, but within the current Z1, he can place the restaurant without being able to serve alcohol.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. I'm not going to take on a lot of these social aspects of persons in the neighborhood who made comments, because some of those comments are germane to what is currently going on, not have anything to do with this restaurant whatsoever. I mean, the idea, if we can go back, if I had residents come up and talk about the increase in crime in the area, that's a whole other subject matter, regardless of whether it's created by this instrument or anything else. And if you don't get it approved one way or the other, that would still exist. And that would make a whole other emphasis be placed on any applicant to say, well, because we have an increase in crime in our neighborhood, that we should not do that. Because there again, you're saying to him and saying to us that we would not be approving anything in this court or any other. I look at a lot of the different zoning in that corridor. I mean, you look on Cato on the backside, it has so many different zoning categories you almost can't count. You know, I mean, that's one street over. And it's in the same direction. You're on Bienville side from Foster, Cato is on the backside of off of Foster. You have so many different kind of categories of zoning: B1, AB1, B2, BC, C1, A2, B1, AB. You got so many zonings on the same street. So you have to deal with how do you grapple with telling one developer, business, whatever, that we won't do that. I did hear a lot of the people on Bienville indicate that they are not opposed to it, but there are some issues that arise by this particular category.
Commissioner Addison, would you mind if I brought something to your attention for just a moment?
Appreciate it.
Something I was informed of by the director when chatting with him. Obviously, we always promote that each applicant speaks with the community, whether that's facilitated through the councilman or other means. We always advocate that so that a lot of the concerns have the best opportunity of being mitigated. Obviously, that they didn't have a chance to do that. Applicant stated that things were brought to his attention very recently that didn't allow for much time for that to happen. However, if we were to defer this item, I believe our next meeting, obviously this item would also need to get council approval. I believe the council meeting that would need to occur at will happen after our next planning and zoning meeting, meaning that if we were to defer this item to allow that those communications to take place, it would not have any impact on the timeline for council deferral. Something I wanted to bring to your attention as I felt it was germane to the comments made by the residents, some of the miscommunications or lack of communication that's happened between them thus far.
Okay, I mean, again, you're stating that the applicant between now and the council meeting would not have any adverse impact between the council meeting vote and the applicant of tonight? If we defer this for 30 days?
The next planning commission meeting is November 13th, and this item
goes before the
was
council.
initially scheduled to be heard by the council November 15th, so there would be no overall delay if this body chose to defer the item.
Well, I'll make a motion, so we want to delay for this tonight. We could make the motion to defer this for 30 days, and it'll still stay on his regular council meeting if we decide to approve it. And that would, again, give the applicant an opportunity to further talk to the residents. And I could say to both parties to kind of be open to what we are talking about here is the use of his property. And all the other issues that we may be talking about may not be subject or germane to his applicant. So I would like to make the motion to defer for 30 days and give him an opportunity to meet with residents and his council member.
There's a motion on the floor from Commissioner Addison to defer this item for 30 days. I believe that motion received a second from Vice Chairman Grout. Are there any objections or any need for further discussion? Commissioner Boyd.
Can you just give us an idea of what your proposed hours of operation might be? What are you
Yes,
planning?
11 to 7 during the majority of the week, with Friday and Saturday staying open potentially till 8 or 9, where folks like to go out to eat. So 11 to 7. Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Any additional comments? Again, motion on the floor from Commissioner Addison to defer 30 days, second by Vice Chairman Grout. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the item has been deferred for 30 days.
Mr. Chairman, we can now move on to items 10 and 11. These two items must be taken together. Items 10, case 6323-205 Kimbrough Avenue, and item 11, PUD 123 Benton, formerly the Village at Magnolia Woods.
Case 6323, 205 Kimbrough Avenue, related to PUD 123 Benton, formerly the Village of Magnolia Woods, concept plan revision. Property is located on the west side of Kimbrough Drive, south of Menlo Drive, Council District 12, Raqqa. The applicant is Matt Estopanol. Future BR land use designation is residential neighborhood. The existing zoning is planned unit development, PUD, with a requested zoning of single-family residential, A1, for removal from the Village of Magnolia Woods planned unit development. PUD 123 Benton, formerly the Village of Magnolia Woods, concept plan revision. Property is located on the north side of Highland Road, east of Magnolia Wood Avenue, Council District 12, Raqqa. The applicant is proposing a revision of the boundary limits of the PUD concept plan and relocation of a vehicular connection from Kimbrough Drive to Magnolia Woods Avenue. Future BR land use designation is residential neighborhood and neighborhood center. Case 6323, 205 Kimbrough Avenue, related to PUD 123, Benton, formerly the Village of Magnolia Woods, concept plan revision.
Staff certifies that the proposed rezoning request meets the criteria for a change of zoning, being consistent with the comprehensive plan, compatible with surrounding uses, and conforming to Unified Development Code requirements. Staff also certifies the proposed planned unit development revision meets the minimum criteria for planned unit development, being compatible with surrounding uses and conforming to Unified Development Code requirements.
The Planning Commission office has received 13 messages in opposition to these two items and 2 in support.
Thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing and invite the applicant to speak for a period not to exceed 15 minutes.
Thank you, Council. My name is Ty Gose. I am the developer of this project, and we've presented this twice before, so I believe that the Council is familiar with this project. The 2 changes that we are asking for tonight are first the name change from Village at Magnolia Woods to Benton at Magnolia Woods, and the connection from Kimbrough, moving that over to Magnolia Woods. I'll be here later to answer any questions if anyone has any. Thank you.
Okay. Our next card is for Matt Stopenall. I'm assuming you don't need to go. Theodore Cash. You have the floor for 3 minutes, sir.
All right. Good evening, y'all. My name is Theodore Cash. I'm an East Baton Rouge Parish public school teacher, and I live on 345 Baird Drive. My home is 1 street over from the proposed development at the Menlo and Baird intersection. I agree with some of my neighbors' concerns insofar as I hope the floodplain management is properly implemented. But where I do disagree with some of them is much of the other concerns that they have. There are 2 bus stops directly adjoining and opposite the development. I'd appreciate if the developer could, pay for 2 nice covered bus stops. The pro-transit advocacy organization Ride New Orleans has produced a great document available on their website about this. Eliminating parking minimums near transit-oriented developments has now been legalized in all of California, as well as Raleigh, North Carolina, and Minneapolis. And I would encourage Baton Rouge to follow suit. Growth is inevitable, and environmentally conscious infill development, such as the proposed within our city limits, is necessary in order to keep our beautiful natural areas and outdoor recreation protected. Additionally, I appreciate the mixed use character of the development. Sammy's and George's are fine restaurants, but an actual neighborhood pub open late and in walking distance would be greatly appreciated by me and a few other neighbors that I've spoken to, just 2. Additionally, maybe some red paint striping on nearby blocks to identify where parking is and isn't legal would go a long way to avoid conflicts. Working people in Baton Rouge are getting hit hard by inflation and increasing rents, and additional housing supply is an important part of the path forward to reducing that impact. I feel this mostly single-family development and all new developments in Baton Rouge could go even further in the direction of mixing commercial and residential development, greater density, and more transit-oriented development generally. So I say yes in my backyard, and I respectfully ask you to approve the planned unit development. Thank you.
Thank you. We have additional speaker cords that are in favor but do not wish to speak. I'll read those names in for the record. Eddie Carter, Ella Digby, Dorothy Major, Mike Allen, Sally Allen, Ryan Betancourt, and Tyler Hallman. Moving on to the opposition, our first speaker cord is for Jennifer Dietz. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
All right. My name is Jennifer Dietz. I have lived in Magwood since 2016. I'm also the current president of the Magnolia Woods Civic Association. This neighborhood has been a family-centric oasis in Baton Rouge since its original development in the 1950s. Over the past several years, Magwoods has started to experience an exciting revival with the influx of young, growing families. I wish you could see a summer day in Magwoods. Bike and scooter gangs of kids roll from house to the pool, to the creek, and back again. They come home tan and tired and hungry. Magwoods is what a neighborhood and a childhood should be, and it's what we want to protect. In August, the Civic Association adopted a board resolution opposing any vehicular outlets into Magwoods besides Highland Road. But as much as I would love to win that battle, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about reality. Because the reality is I can stand up here until I'm blue in the face, along with the other 700 residents of Magwoods, and tell you that we don't want any outlets into the neighborhood. And the reality is that the city will vote against us. I've seen it happen time and time again. I can swallow that reality. But do y'all need to strongly consider and face the other realities? The reality is that Magwoods is not built to handle the traffic from this neighborhood. It is just wide enough for cars to squeeze past each other without falling into ditches. All of our streets are like that. The reality is that the exit onto Magwoods, barely 100 feet from Highland, is really just a third exit onto Highland. Go turn onto Highland from Magwoods and tell me that's a safe intersection. It's narrow and visibility is shallow. I keep hearing the results of the traffic study are that it's just 300 cars a day, which is only 10, 12 cars an hour. But the reality is that the majority of that traffic will come in and out at the same time our kids are waiting for the bus or going to swim practice, and our neighbors are going for walks. Magwoods is a terrible place to put an exit. So are Kimbrough and Menlo. That's the reality. If you ask me what I want, my answer would be no outlets into our neighborhood. But if you tell me I don't have a choice, which I know to be the inevitable writing on the wall, I would like this PUD denied, and I want the city to work with our residents and Mr. Ghost to come up with a better solution. Now, problems without solutions just stay problems. One simple way to fix all of this is to put a dead end on Kimbrough and exit the Benton development to Starring Lane. The city gets the third exit it wants. It's not a third exit onto Highland, and our folks that live on Kimbrough get a solution to their current traffic and speeding problem with a dead-end street. It's what Generaca originally proposed. That is one of many viable solutions that could potentially appease all of the parties. Ty and Generaca are willing to work with us, and I hope you are too. Please vote this PUD down, and let's find a better solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next card is for Annette EBR.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention, okay? My name is Annette EBR. My husband and I, his name is Dyke. We live at 330 Magnolia Wood Avenue. We are sadly having to say goodbye to all the great woods that were behind our house, which was the reason we bought our house in 1995. That's all gone. Now they want to bring an inordinate amount of traffic onto Magnolia Wood Avenue, just a couple of doors down from where we live. And we have some problems with that, and one is that there's a business that's located on Magnolia Wood Avenue at 321, and they actually have traffic to and from that location on a daily basis, 6 days a week, that impacts the ability of people to travel through the area already. And that's within a couple of 100 feet of the proposed outlet that you want to put. We have a neighbor right there that actually can't even get out of their driveway at times because the people at that location come and park cars in their driveway or block the street to the point where it's impossible to turn because the street is already so narrow. So I think it should be taken off the table because it just is already a dangerous situation. We have been asking for speed bumps to no avail on that stretch of road for years because people, buses, trucks, delivery, everybody ignores the 25 per hour speed limit signs up and down Magnolia Wood and just zoom on through at 40, 45 miles an hour without a care in the world. And as previously stated, there are children, there are people with pets, there are elderly. I'm an elderly. And I have to ask a question. We've been paying taxes on our home since 1995. And I thought the purpose of property taxes were to fund the city parish government and other people that are there working for us. Do you work for us? Who do you work for? Do you work for us? We're paying the taxes that I think pay you. Please, we need your help. Please don't allow this to go out onto Magnolia Wood Avenue. We don't have the resources there. We don't have sidewalks. The ditches are deep, and as I've previously noted to other people, that I watched my 90-year-old neighbor jump in a ditch in front of her house around 1998. And that's not right to have these cars through here, and you're going to put more at, like she said, during really peak business times. It's just too hard.
You have about 15 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. I will wrap it up. I also had suggested to Mr. Goes that if we could possibly turn this into 3/4, half-acre lots in there and keep the development down to 15 to 20 homes instead of the proposed 70 on micro units, or just build like they did right there on Highland Road.
Thank you, ma'am.
With $2 and $3 million homes.
Thank you. I'm sorry your time is up.
I understand. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next card is for Linda Fowler.
Hi, good evening. Excuse me, I have a bit of allergy problem today. And I'm Linda Fowler, and my husband and I, and he's Paul Kemp, and I think he's been working on something with the drainage, so, but that's, I know nothing about that part. But we have lived in our home at 633 Magnolia Wood Avenue since 1990. In fact, I think today is the 33rd anniversary of when we either closed or moved in. So, and before that, I had lived on Menlo for 10 years, right around the corner. So I have owned both of those homes in Magnolia Wood. And I'm an attorney, retired, but I may have run into some of you who may be attorneys. I taught at both LSU, and I helped start the evening program at Southern University with then Chancellor Judge Pitcher. So I have been pretty connected to Baton Rouge, having grown up, had my whole career here. And I was so glad when we had our two boys that we could raise them in Magnolia Woods. Like the other ladies have talked about, we were able to walk them with strollers and teach them to ride bikes and all. And she's absolutely right. The streets are so narrow. I always tell people to park in my driveway when they're coming over, because you really cannot park on the street, much less get around a car. So we have that problem and a lot of ditches there. And I'm just concerned that with this many, 77 units or 70 units, we're going to have a lot more traffic on Magnolia Wood, because people will cut through Magnolia Wood to go through Walden and get to Perkins. Or maybe they won't want to wait at the two Highland outlets. They will want to go on to Magnolia Wood and go on their way to work, to school, maybe bringing their kids to school, and then they'll have another trip home. Then again, if you're picking up your kids, you go back out. So I know what is involved, having been both a teacher and a mother, going and picking up kids, and also driving in the neighborhood. Also, people, this is a nice shortcut to Kenilworth, and then on to either Highland or again to Perkins, or to Menlo on on Magnolia Wood, to Starring.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, can I just have 15 seconds?
I give you 10 seconds.
10?
Yes, ma'am.
Starting now?
Starting right now.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, you get a lawyer up here. Okay. All right, here I go. All right. I would just say help us keep our neighborhood a safe place. I have another son who lives behind me. He runs 2 or 3 hours a day. I know that sounds crazy, but he's an engineer, and my other son and I own another house in Magnolia Wood,
Thank
and he
you,
has a
ma'am. I
3-year-old.
understand.
So help us keep our neighborhood safe.
Thank you so much.
And we appreciate that y'all are listening attentively. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ella Digby.
Good evening. My name is Ella. I'm a lifetime resident of Baton Rouge, grew up in the Garden District. My husband and I have lived on the corner of Castlecirk and Chandler, a few blocks down from the development for the last 10 years. We have 2 small children. We love the neighborhood. Our kids are on their bikes every day. I want to speak specifically to the topic of connectivity, as that is a nice buzzword we hear all the time now. As a 37-year-old, I am the face of Magnolia Woods. We are the next generation. On my block alone, there are 23 children and counting on my single stretch of the block alone. So let's talk about connectivity. Let's talk about double standards in Baton Rouge regarding the city approving connectivity for neighborhoods off of Highland, not limited to, but including University Hills, Plantation Trace, Knox Hill, Woodstone, Woodgate, the new neighborhood of Steeplechase, Valhalla, University Highlands, the Myrtles, the Highlands, Dutch Manor, another one that's under development currently, Highland Lakes, and Highland Bluff. Those are the only ones that I can think of off the top of my head. None of these have a second entry-exit off of Highland Road. So are we saying that their lives are less important, or are we talking about not being able to get these people with the emergent, I keep hearing this emergency access. Where's the double standard here? I'm not understanding why all of these have one entry and exit and that's okay, but all of a sudden we have to have 2. My problem with 2, especially with the egress into our neighborhood, like the other said, is a connectivity issue and a traffic issue. I have been in a battle with the city for the 10 years I've lived here. This is my 3rd speed study performed on Castlecirk and Chandler. The last time they denied me in May because I only had 95 vehicles average per 8 hours going along Chandler Drive by my house. Apparently that wasn't enough. They said I needed 300 vehicles per hour. Please tell me if any of you would like 300 vehicles across your residence in an 8-hour time span and say that that's okay. I'm just trying to get a 4-way stop on my corner. So the thought of having more cut-through traffic coming through from my house, which is up 2 blocks off of Starring, I cut through the neighborhood myself because I would much rather go through a beautiful neighborhood to get to Highland or get to Kenilworth or get to Walden than go on Starring. And I know that the people of this new development are going to do the same. And it's not just the residents. It's going to be the commercial vendors, the janitors, everything else that's going to make this development click. I'm not against the development. I'm all for connectivity. I'm 37. I would love to take my kids and go have coffee. I'd love to use the residential footpath and go hang out. But the vehicular egress is going to do absolutely nothing.
About 10 seconds.
But make my life and my children's lives more difficult than it already is. Baton Rouge is bleeding young families and young professionals. The state is bleeding young professionals. And if you keep ignoring the young professionals and our safety, you're going to have a bigger problem. Thank you for your time.
Our next card is for Ryan Betancourt. You have the floor for 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ryan Betancourt. I live on 689 Castle Kirk. Like many others, I'm not opposed to the development. I have issues with certain aspects of how it's been planned and presented. I appreciate that we have worked already on drainage issues. I feel comfortable about the progress that we made. I appreciate that time. So that takes off a big part of it. I hear a lot about traffic, and there's from the developers, how the traffic is not going to be an issue, how it's going to be nominal, minimal, have minimal impact. I hear that they have read that they have a traffic impact study that they did not have to do, but they did anyway. And so I took a look at the traffic impact study to sort of get an idea about the numbers, because if it says in the back outlet it's going to be a small amount of people, one person one vehicle every 10 minutes or whatever it was, that's manageable back there. Taking a look at what's straight from the paperwork from the traffic study, it's showing that generated trips in the AM peak period is 138. Generated trips in the PM peak period is 184, and that's based off their information. So we already know that this is for the whole area, the whole network, that this is the trips that will be taking place dispersing through there. And y'all have hopefully seen that from the traffic study. This is a map, a diagram showing how they expect the disbursement to take place. And this is based on the original map done in April 23, at a time when the outlet was at Kimbrough, where it is back now and trying to be moved again. And it's showing that it's nominal. It's showing 6 vehicles. And this is also at a time where there was a gate at that outlet. And so what I would like y'all to answer is if this data, based on the study, was based upon expected traffic with a gate, a private gate, which is what it says in here. I'll read straight from Appendix E, Build Analysis. This report documents the results of a traffic impacts analysis of a proposed mixed-use development, Benin, located on Highland Road, as shown on the following page in the site plan, as shown as developed by SJB Group. The following assumptions were made as part of the analysis. The first ones are just about residence lots, but the bottom 2 are a private drive will connect to Kimbrough Drive that will form a new T intersection, and the private drive at Kimbrough Drive will be closed to the public and controlled by a gate.
About 20 seconds.
So I know that's not the case anymore. I'm hoping that the commission can get some clarification on that, because I don't want someone ripping down Castle Kirk, late to get to coffee, late to whatever, putting my family in danger. We have many families that live there, and like was discussed earlier today, when we purchased our home, it was for a small, neighborhood like that where we could walk and be safe. So thank you. Please clarify this.
Thank you. Our next card is for Key Ballard.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Kay Ballard.
Kay.
And nice to talk to you. I live at 957 Castle Kirk. We moved into the neighborhood in 72. I raised children, had grandchildren, safe neighborhood, safe environment. We were just a nice, quiet neighborhood. I have difficulty understanding the people who are making these decisions for our neighborhood. It's obvious they have no understanding, nor do they care about the community in our neighborhood. Their concerns align with the developer and a bad interpretation of the 13.3 of the Undevelopment Code, excuse me. My understanding is that the outlet will cause hardships on existing property, on property owners, which is against this code. What is the hardship? Major traffic into our neighborhood. What I don't understand is how the developer and planning zone rectify their decision. I would appreciate you taking this into consider it. Anyway, thanks. You got it. All right.
Thank you, ma'am. We have additional speaker cards that are also in opposition but do not wish to speak. I'll read those names in at this time. Michael Newmar, Eddie Carter, Sally Allen, Mike Allen, Dorothy Bajer, Judy Foyle, Mary Atkinson, Bernard Atkinson, Byron Rex, Kelsey Amato, Jason Amato, Catherine Doran, Candace Johnson, Selena Johnson, and Brandon DeQueer. Who has changed their mind? You can come forward.
Sorry. I changed my mind. My name is Catherine Doran.
Okay.
I'm a resident on Magnolia Wood, 316 Magnolia Wood. This development is actually right behind my house and right next door to me. So this outlet onto Magnolia Woods is going to come out right next to my home. I have 2 small children under the age of 3, and we use the road all day, every day. I actually stay home with them. So, I go to the pool and back. We walk the dog, ride bikes. all of these things, and we are very concerned about the traffic. My kids, coming in and out of the driveway, things like that, it's literally going to be right next to my house. So me and my husband are very concerned with all of the traffic that this is going to produce with it coming out into Magnolia. Ideally, we would really like that it would only come out onto Highland. But for what it's worth, we're very opposed to it and hope that you can consider the safety of my kids. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite the applicant back for a 5-minute rebuttal. I'm sorry, did we have another court that changed their mind? You chose not to speak. Come on. You have the floor for 3
Byron
minutes.
Rex, 590 Castle Kirk. We moved here from South Bend, Indiana 2 years ago, and love the neighborhood. It's great. We do see a lot of traffic that builds up at the corner of Castle Kirk and Boone from the hours of probably 8 o'clock to 8:30, where it's so bad where I can't actually get out of my driveway. So the increased traffic due to these the drives would, I think, be more of an inconvenience on us to sit and wait for 5 minutes when we're trying to leave for work because of the backup at Starring all the way to Castle Kirk. I think that additional access would be a great inconvenience to us. So.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Now, if everyone who indicated they do not wish to speak still does not wish to speak, I would like to invite the applicant back for a 5-minute rebuttal. And in doing so, I would just say I'd appreciate it if you don't mind. There's obviously some concern regarding traffic and outlets and whatnot. So if you could give a little background as to what's already been approved and why it is that you're pursuing this at this time.
Sure. So the original plan had a connection to Kimbrough. And after we had gotten the approvals, we learned that there was a deed restriction on the lot that we had under contract and rezoned that just presented some potential issues with regards to us moving forward and investing a significant amount of funds in it. So that was really the turning point. And we had purchased this lot when we purchased the original 20 acres with the original plan of connecting to Magwoods. So Kimbrough was, something that came up during due diligence, and despite what we tried to do, it didn't work out. So we're here to try and create an additional access point per UDC, and that's why we're here tonight. As far as drainage goes, drainage was our primary concern when we started this process. And when we met with the neighbors and we met with the board, the Civic Association, we found, and when we ran our drainage studies, we found that there was water backing up under that Highland Road access. That there's a culvert underneath Highland Road next to Sammy's that backs up. And so we've pledged $125,000 to go fix that problem, which is the main source of drainage issues on that side of that subdivision. There's a couple things that we have to do, and we're going to need the neighbors' help to try and make it happen. But that's our commitment as far as drainage goes. We also submitted this application when we were required by the 25-year storm drain, and we voluntarily have met the 100-year. So we've gone above and beyond where we could to work with the neighbors and do a good job with this. When we ran our traffic studies, what we found is that there wasn't a tremendous amount of traffic in the neighborhood. There was a tremendous amount of speeding. And so we would like to help the neighborhood with some traffic calming measures, in order to reduce the impact, because there weren't that many cars when we ran our studies. The 300 cars per day, the majority of those are coming in and out of Highland Road. And I'm almost positive that the traffic study that we ran that showed the 6 cars per day was a revised traffic number that included, 6 cars per hour at the peak hour on Kimbrough. That it was run with the knowledge of not having a gate there. I believe the language about there being a gate, I don't think he took that out when he reran it, but I will confirm that. Either way, it's not a lot of traffic. In talking with him prior to this meeting, he deduced that there will actually be less traffic coming onto Magwoods than onto Kimbrough, because Kimbrough is a direct connection, I guess, out to Starring, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to come up through our project, make a right turn, a left turn, and another left turn to get back onto Magwoods when you can just take Magwoods. So it's not a cut through really that provides any shorter distance or quicker travel time. So we can run another traffic study. It's just, again, there weren't many cars there at all to start with. That being said, the people of Magnolia Woods have been very gracious. We've had 3 town halls, numerous meetings with the stakeholders and the neighbors, including this connection. And they're great people. They care a lot about this neighborhood, and that's something that we have in common. We want to make this place special for those neighbors, and for generations to come. So I appreciate your time. Are there any questions?
If there's nothing else you'd like to share at this time, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and invite any questions from the commission. I believe we have our first from Commissioner Addison.
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman. My initial questions are not going to be for you because I asked the resident to stay. She was about to leave, and I'd like to have her comments on the record. So if you can just step away for a second. And I would like to say I want to kind of say to the residents, and particularly those who may have seen me having a little humor up here, that is not that I was ignoring your plight. I found it very humorous for some of you to make some of the statements that you made, and there was not so hilarious to the fact that sometimes it's just not lighthearted. I do appreciate everything the residents say up here, and every time they come, I take notes and I kind of make sure that their sides are heard with me. So I want to make that for the records. I know I didn't have to, but I wanted to say it for the records. And one of your neighbors talked about how a 90-year-old person had to jump in the ditch. And if you don't kind of find that humorous, but it's very serious, that if your roads are not wide enough, that is something that we as commissioners should take consideration, as well as the Public Works Department. But if they're walkable communities, they have to be safe. And so I wasn't making light of it. The resident who's looking up here now, I want to say that. And the other aspect, again, it would go without note. I know we seem to think that we are paid a lot of taxpayers' money. We are volunteers up here. We actually give our time for our service as a citizen, as a civic responsibility. So we're not paid with taxpayer dollars, and I want to also put that on the records for anyone. But I did ask this resident to stay because she made some very valid points when she was making her presentation, and I thought I wanted clarity of. And we often talk about the smart street connectivity of this parish system, and she laid out a litany of areas in this parish that does not have that, and she talked about double standards. And I made note of that. And what I did say to her is that that she rattled off so fast a lot of neighborhoods. And while some of those may be older and some of those might be new, they might fall into the UDC for current. But that would be correct when you talk about neighborhoods and smart streets and smart connectivity. And then I'll address the second part, because if she needs to leave for the day, then I do appreciate her taking the time when I went out of here to actually ask her to stay, just to tell me again and tell this body some of those neighborhoods that are currently not connected under the smart streets that we have approved, that this body or the council, so we don't seem to have a double standards in regards to our application of the UDC or the law. Because if smart streets is going to be our way to make sure the connectivity works in this parish, then we need to have an understanding. And then some of those that you rattled off, as again, might be older, may be current, but I wanted to know what they were so that I can kind of give some interest to that when we talk about this particular application.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm going to use my inside voice, I promise. I was in mom mode there for a second when I get passionate about stuff. neighborhoods that I was listing were those that were off the top of my head and are not all inclusive. And yes, there were some older ones, I'm assuming, that were under different planning, zoning and whatever when they were built. But some of the newer ones that are in development right now, or just development, one would be Valhalla, which is near the intersection of PQ and Highland. Another one is Steeplechase, which is the one that is going up across from Ace Hardware on Highland Road at the intersection near Kenilworth. There's Highland Bluff, which is another one, I believe. We have Dutch Manor, which is another new one that is in between the stretch of Highland between Gardier and Bluebonnet. The land is cleared. It's ready for that. I actually know the people that live on the side of that. They're not planning any kind of second egress off of Highland Road, and that's not to mention all the other older ones that I listed, and I can list this for you as well. Those were University Hills, Plantation Trace, Knox Hill, Woodstone, Woodgate, University Highlands, the Myrtles, the Highlands, Highland Lakes. And so, I'm not a planner, I'm not a developer, I'm not a city official, but to me, there's just a lot of double standard there, and I don't understand. I don't understand why certain things are approved and others aren't. And if you have this much opposition, and we have a developer that's willing and wanting to accommodate our request on this, then it seems to me that the only people that are standing in our way is the city. And I love this city, but there are a lot of things that could change that could help people like me and my family want to stay. Because I have a husband who's not from here. He's from Mandeville, and he reminds me of it every day. Okay? And I want to stay here. This is my home, and I want my children to grow up in this neighborhood. But y'all gotta help us and help them. And, like the other lady had said earlier, like, who are you working for? The traffic flow through this neighborhood has increased in the last 10 years that I've been here. And with that comes other safety issues. It brings up issues. I just had a shooting 2 blocks down from my house. Connectivity matters, yes, but to a point. And if the neighbors of this neighborhood are not asking for more connectivity, then why are they not being heard?
Okay. Well, I do appreciate it. Again, I thank you for your time, and thank you for coming back.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. And now I would like the developer to come back for a second, because and I hear, the concerns of the residents, particularly with the connectivity on this particular one. You said initially your initial connectivity was Kimbrough, and you could not accommodate that based on some other issue, and that is why you're coming back to modify this to go to Magwood. Am I correct on that?
Yes, sir.
And of course, she just stated that, you guys work with the residents, or attempting to work with residents to find a solution to that. This is the only connectivity that you could probably meet the smart streets obligation is by connecting this particular street, or is there other potential options? I'm sure you've looked at it. I just wanted to ask for the record.
Yeah, the only other option was to connect through Menlo to, is it Castle Kirk? Which was at the first town hall that we had was very much negative feedback from the neighborhood. So this
you tend to get on both sides. You try to connect to Menlo, you probably have negative feedback on that side. If you connect to Magwood, you got it on the next side. So you're just going to change with residents come down here. So to be honest with you try that on Menlo, it won't be Magwood, it'll be Menlo this time. So you're getting that catch. That's why when the citizens sit here and listen to that, we'll have somebody here that would say, not my street. I understand that. But I do want to understand more clearly that there are options. You talk about the traffic count. And your traffic count on this particular connectivity would be a less of an impact based on the way it is versus some other street. Again, give me that again, how you came up with that, or your engineers came up with that part.
Sure. So the initial connection shot out to Starring. And so there was additional counts, additional cars allocated because of its proximity to Starring. This connection that goes to Magnolia Woods, coming through our project, you have to make multiple turns to get to Magnolia Woods. And so it's really quite a deterrent for anyone trying to cut through to add that they would just go to Magnolia Woods anyway. If they come through us, they've got to make 3 or 4 different turns as opposed to just turning onto Magnolia Woods.
And finally, I don't know if your impact study, your traffic study identified the width or the size of the streets that we're talking about, Magnolia Woods versus Kimbrough versus the other street you just mentioned, because that public safety aspect, because of Magnolia Woods having smaller streets, and they probably have an average size street. It's just probably not a smaller street. Some streets have ditches on the sides of them. Some streets have sidewalks, and it looks bigger based on that. But there's probably under the street plan probably has a normal 30-foot width of most streets. I don't know what those are. You probably can address something along that line.
That would be.
The right-of-ways are wide enough, but the street itself paved is about
that's paved a certain
about 20 foot,
That's
and
right.
there's ditches on both sides.
That's right.
So I'm not the traffic engineer, I'm the civil engineer. So the traffic guy, they do consider width of roads when they run these studies. And the narrow, it's hard for a Chalmatian to say, the narrower the road is, the less likely someone is to drive it, right? So you wind up staying on Highland, going to Starring. So the narrower roads do help with traffic calming, but it is a safety issue. That neighborhood doesn't have sidewalks. So I think the best thing to do would be a project to put sidewalks on the outside of the ditches, so you have a safe place to walk outside of Magwoods. And then I also have something for Ms. Rigby. I'm familiar with some of those subdivisions that only have one connection. Some of them are small in size, a low lot count, so it doesn't warrant multiple connections. Back in the day, you get to a certain size and you have to have multiple connections. Some of those neighborhoods only have so much width on Highland Road. Like Highland Manor, it's very narrow. There's no place to put 2 roads, and it dead ends at Bayou Fountain. So you'd have to build a bridge and there's just no way to make a physical connection.
Okay, well, again, I do appreciate you trying to address her issues, but I don't know if you can do that either. I mean, I think you can pick out some of those and try to get an explanation for that. But I don't know if that'll warrant me having a discussion on your project and how I can make a determination on that.
Yeah.
So in all due respects, I'm just trying to get clarity to the size of your streets, and that helps to deal with the safety factor. I mean, I'm not going to ask you out to consider putting sidewalks on any one of those streets in order to deal with that part, but if the street size is a factor, then that's what I say you could identify that. And since you're not the traffic engineer, that's a different aspect. You can't speak to that.
That's right.
And again, that was just probably my concerns that I've had, but hearing some of the residents bring those concerns to this body as to how do we address that and mitigate that. And of course, finally, we heard a couple of other concerns that was raised that I would like to. The biggest part of this has been street connectivity. I mean, let's get back to the nuts and bolts of what residents raised, and all the notes I have here is about connectivity to their neighborhood and why they do that. And you talked about the possibility of you exploring what those other ones were. And again, I don't know if there's no engineer here tonight, but there is no other alternative. There's no waiver that you can get to not connect. We often hear that as well. There's some of these planning apparatuses for us that they don't want to, the residents don't want it, and the developer then is forced to provide us with alternative connectivity. Can any of those connectivities be just an emergency connectivity in your case, where they just have lock gates with an emergency access a vehicle only? Is that something that you all can have? I mean, I've heard that as a possible alternative in other neighborhoods where the residents didn't want cut through and didn't want streets, but we have access by emergency vehicles only. Is that a possibility? Is that something that's been raised? Is that something the council person has looked into?
So Commissioner Addison, I can address that.
Please, he can address that and not you guys.
There has been some talk about private gates and private streets throughout the life of this project in the first reiteration of it that ultimately got approved. What was approved was public streets, and there's no way to gate public streets. The only way to gate for emergency access or private access would be to have a private development that is responsible for the private maintenance and upkeep of those private streets in the development, which this is not. This is shown as public street.
Okay, so that answers that question. Your project is deemed in a public category with public street, which means that potential alternative of placing a public locked access gate, that one probably wouldn't be applicable here.
That's right. I do have one more thing, Mr.
Go ahead,
Madison.
please.
In the comments we got back from the fire chief, he pointed out that we have to have 2 connections as separately as feasible on the project. So the fire chief is requesting that second exit.
But that's the public access one. I'm
No,
talking
on
about.
public.
I'm talking about the public roadway. That's a different one. That's
That's right.
connectivity for
That's right.
which is me. That's emergency access.
Exactly, but it's a second road.
No question, it's a second
Yeah.
road. Yeah, no, I didn't say that. I mean, I understand what the Public Safety Act community is going to ask for and require, that you're going to meet their requirements, but you're talking about public access, street connectivity. That's something totally different, and your plan was approved with that as a public right-of-way, public street
Yes, sir.
access. So,
That's right.
so I understand you're going to have a second one, but that's for someone else other in the plan and in the permanent stage for operations. So I understand that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And I'm done, Mr. Chairman. Thank you much.
Thank you, Commissioner Addison. Additional questions or comments from the commission? No, sir. No, sir. This is the commissioner's comments section. Thank you.
Could I ask one question to Mr.
Sir,
Addison?
sir, the public hearing portion is concluded. Thank you. Additional questions or comments? Commissioner Scroggs.
So I think this is for Mr. Holcomb. Is there no way for this project to move forward without that secondary access to Mag Woods?
If this were to be denied, the previous project is still valid, and that secondary access that is required by code was shown on Kimbrough. So one way or the other, for this project to either be approved or to continue to move forward with the previously approved one, there has to be a secondary access per the code requirement.
A question for the applicant. You said that the issue on Kimbrough was a deed restriction issue?
Yes, sir. That's right.
What specifically was the restriction, or what was the issue?
restriction was no commercial development on that lot. And there's a small percentage chance that it becomes a larger issue because we have commercial within our development. And, spending an inordinate amount of dollars to build that and then run into a lawsuit down the road is too risky. So
Okay, well, I'm not an attorney, but if it's being used as a road, is that commercial? I mean, and I know I'm
Yes, sir.
getting way out of my corner.
Yes, sir.
But I'll just get on my soapbox here for a second. I believe in connectivity.
Mhm.
I believe one of the reasons our city has the traffic problems it does is a lack of connectivity. And the fact that you can have multiple ways to go from point A to point B is, I think, necessary for a healthy city and necessary for healthy growth. So I know I think there are others here who have a difference of opinion, and yes, there are places that we do not have that connection, and those become sometimes problems. Now, that being said, I would rather see the connection on Kimbrough because you can get to Starring, as opposed to Magnolia Woods, which puts it right out back on Highland. You already have 2 entrances on Highland. This becomes a third one. Just it's on their property. It's on their street. So for me, I really have a hard time with this with this change. And as of now, excuse me, as of now, I cannot see supporting this going forward. So when a motion comes, we'll get to that. But what's on Kimbrough, I think, to my mind, is a better choice. If it was me as a designer, I would go straight through to Castle Kirk. But I know that that's off the table. So next best thing would be Kimbrough. You may have to have some hurdles with some attorneys, but I cannot support this because it's really not adding legitimate, to my mind, connectivity. And I know Matt's a very fine engineer. I've worked with him before, so I don't think that somebody missed the boat. I just don't think this is the best solution. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Crowell. Additional questions or comments? Commissioner Banks, did you? Okay. Commissioner Addison?
Thank you much, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question for you all. I had a gentleman who wanted to ask a question, and I would be happy to allow him to do so.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank
You
you very
need
much.
to come to the mic and
mic.
identify
Yes,
yourself,
sir,
though? Okay.
My name is Michael Newman. I live in Magnolia Woods. I've lived there for close to about 50 years. And you and I have already had an interaction about the drainage, and we'll get back to that because it's a lot of fun. With the new drainage engineer, as Rachel's gone. So in the process, this is a question for Mr. Holcomb, because what I got through some discussion with Ms. Grimion was that you're using the UDC and you're using 13.3, but you specifically pulled out something, not reading the whole paragraph. And in there in that UDC, it says it shouldn't cause the existing property owners hardship. I think an outlet on Magnolia Woods Drive would cause the existing neighbors a hardship of all that traffic coming out of there.
Okay.
So that's the thing I wanted to say, was that nobody's brought up the UDC 13.3 and no hardship. That's the language that is used.
Okay.
And that's what I was after, because that is a hardship for Magnolia Woods Drive and property owners on Magnolia Woods Drive.
Okay.
Okay.
So okay, you got your question then.
That's it.
Okay, got it. Okay, we got it.
Anything else, Commissioner Addison?
I didn't know that. Nothing else, Mr. Chairman, but I would like to make a motion. I too concur that I think the better use of this is to leave it on Kimbrough. I understand the developer had an issue with regards to deed restrictions on the property intended in the project to bring it to Kimbrough. And with that, I'd like to make the motion to deny, and it would then remain in the same posture that it is on Kimbrough for that second connectivity under the UDC.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor from Commissioner Addison to deny these two items. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
A second from Vice Chairman Grout. Are there any objections?
I'm opposed.
There's one noted objection from Commissioner Scroggs. Are there any additional objections or any further discussion? Seeing none, those items are denied. We will move on to items number 15 and 16. I believe these can be taken together, correct? Director Holcomb?
That's a request. We had a request by the applicant to pull items 15 and 16, which can be taken together from the consent agenda. I believe the applicant is going to request a deferral.
Okay. Is the applicant present? And Mr. Holcomb, there are no additional speaker cords on this item. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
So is it your intention to defer this item for 30
That's
days,
correct.
sir? Okay.
Yes,
Do you
sir.
have anything else you feel you need to add at this time?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, at this time, I will close the public hearing. Commissioner Addison?
Move for deferral.
There's a motion on the floor for Commissioner Addison to defer this item for 30 days, These two items, for 30 days. That motion received a second from Vice Chairman Grout. Are there any objections? Seeing none, those items have been deferred for 30 days. At this time, we will move on to communications, beginning with director's comments.
Yeah, real quick, at your seats is a draft copy of the UDC text amendment that will come before you at your next Planning Commission meeting in November. This text amendment was initiated by the Metropolitan Council on August 23rd, 2023. The revision would potentially change commercial outdoor recreation in rural zoning from a permitted use to a conditional use with requirements. And again, we're giving it to you a month early for review, and this will be on the agenda in November with additional details. Just a reminder, your next regular scheduled Planning Commission meeting is November 13th. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Director Holcomb. We'll now move on to commissioners' comments, and I'll take this time to congratulate our newest employee of the month, Osa Marie Hopkins, Administrative Specialist of the Long Range Planning Division. Marie is being recognized for her willingness to participate in multiple Future BR public workshops. The workshops were a critical component of the community engagement process to solicit feedback for the 5-year update to Future BR. She helped with the sign-in process and was the staff photographer. In addition, she works with reaching out to future BR's lead agencies for action item status updates. She is also a reliable backup at the office for other clerical when needed. She is an extremely valuable employee who is deserving of this recognition. Please join me in congratulating Marie. Are there any additional comments from the commissioners? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion from Commissioner Sterling, second from Commissioner Ellender. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and good night.